This might be the most profitable uncool business in America.
We started with $100 and a beat-up van. Now it's a $300 million empire.
Plus, how you can start making real money hauling away stuff people don't want. Someone's watching this right now and they're saying, hey Nick, I see 5 moving companies in my small town. Is there still opportunity?
This job brings in $500 for 15 minutes of work.
Let's see how 2 broke grads turn junk into a business empire and how you can too. Nick, what did people say when you told them you're gonna quit your degree and haul junk?
They said you're gonna quit your job to do what? Haul junk? And you're gonna call it what? College hunks? Are you throwing away your college degree to start a trash business? Do you really think that's a good idea? So they definitely thought we were a little bit crazy. We used that as motivation, a little bit of fuel for our fire to prove those naysayers wrong.
How do you prove them wrong? And if that fear is stopping someone, what do you tell them?
The first thing is telling myself that there is no doubt. If you doubt yourself, then being able to take that leap and pursue that greatness is gonna be difficult to achieve. Don't let the doubters or the naysayers hold you back. Find people that are gonna champion you. You know, you can't fly with eagles if you're walking with turkeys, and usually the turkeys are the ones that are telling you not to do it.
So tell us, how did 2 broke college students actually scrape together enough to buy a van?
Well, the first van was actually lent to us by my best friend from high school, his mom's furniture store. She let us borrow this beat up cargo van, and from there, our very first truck, we were fortunate enough to get our parents to co-sign on a bank loan, and we were still living at home, no overhead, parking the truck in our parents' house. So I think they were pretty grateful once we were able to get our first office.
When did you know it was time to take that leap into full-time entrepreneurship?
Well, we had kind of done the business plan during our summer before senior year of college. We actually wrote a business plan that won an entrepreneurship competition, gave us a little more confidence. We got regular jobs briefly, and I remember emailing Omar saying, hey, I'm unfulfilled. This is not for me. What's our timeline for starting the business full-time? And he felt the same way. He emailed me back, all capital letters. My timeline's right now, exclamation point, let's do this. So we quit our jobs, we started full-time, and we haven't looked back.
Nice. Were you scared in that moment? You get that email saying now, and he's like, crap, I'm gonna go do this? Or like, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, I was like right now? Like right now? And I remember talking to my dad, and he just saw the energy and enthusiasm I had. And you hear people say, follow your passion. I mean, obviously we weren't passionate about hauling junk or moving, but what we got passionate about was kind of doing something for ourselves, being able to be the creator of our own path, having fun with the brand, the service we were providing. So when my dad saw that energy, he was a believer as well. Finally, he said, you know, I think it's time for you to go into this full time also.
I know the guys are getting breakfast now, which looks incredible, but they're about to head out here. So let's go look at that. These trucks are now iconic, but the name's a little unusual. I mean, how'd you come up with it?
College Hunks Hauling Junk is kind of a mouthful of a name, but it was Omar's mom when she lent us the cargo van. She goes, you guys could be college hunks who haul junk, kind of as a joke. We took it to heart. We said that could be a great way to separate ourselves. It's not what people typically associate with movers and haulers, kind of a pattern interrupt. And it stood out as a name, it stands out as a brand, and now it stands out as a service and a franchise.
Someone viewing right now might say, I only have $500. Nick, what's the smartest way to spend it if I want to get into junk or moving business?
You know, I would spend it on renting a truck because you need a truck, and I would spend the rest either on low cost or no cost ads, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, some signs to put out to make yourself available, some flyers to stick in mailboxes, and you're into business and you get that first job, you start paying for itself.
Well, the team is rolling out right now. Let's go hop on the job site and see what they're doing.
Let's do it. So we charge based on volume, how much space it fills up in one of our junk trucks that you see here. So it could range anywhere from $99 on the low end for one item up to $500, $600 depending on the market for a fully packed truck, all inclusive of labor, loading, disposal time. So what we do is we give a free assessment to the client up front. This particular job was a rental property, had a bunch of junk in the garage that they wanted cleaned out. The team described to me that this would be about between a quarter and a half load. We'd be looking between $200 and $300 for the client, all in.
What's the margins on that then?
Really what we want to try to do is we want to keep our gross margins to be around 25%. Obviously, you factor in disposal fees, fuel, labor, and everything else that can increase. And we pride ourselves in being able to remove the junk from anywhere on the property. This happened to be a little bit easier job because it's all consolidated in the garage. But generally speaking, a good rule of thumb is to target 25, 30%.
What's the minimum you'll take?
So we have a minimum rate to have our 2-man team come out with the truck ready to do the work. It typically ranges, depending on geography, anywhere from $99 to $150. Usually becomes more cost effective the more stuff people have because it's charged based on how much space the items fill up in the truck.
For someone that's going to go out and get their first 10 customers of what you know now, now, what's the cheapest way to do that?
Word of mouth is the least expensive form of marketing. Parking the truck in visible locations, using flyers, signs, and so forth. But just networking, going out and telling people what you do, knocking on doors, going to realtor events. All of those are very inexpensive ways to let people know what you do and what problems you can solve for them.
For you, what's one marketing tactic you were sure would work but did not work?
Well, I was pretty certain that billboards would work because our truck's a moving billboard. The challenge was the cost relative to the value that we were getting and the number of leads that we were getting. So we ended up pulling back on that. It didn't work. We were better off just parking our big moving billboards in visible locations rather than paying the expensive rates for the billboards themselves. For this type of business, which is a lower average ticket, you got to be mindful of not paying for those big ticket advertising expenses, especially at the beginning.
As I understand, you guys started out as junk removal, then you introduced moving services. When did you do that? Of those two categories, which makes more money?
So we started out with just junk removal, helping people get rid of their unwanted items, taken to be disposed of or recycled, donated. And people would ask us to move all the time and we would turn away the business. In about 2008, 2009, we recognized there was a need. People kept asking us and we were trying to expand during the economic downturn, the housing crisis. And we said, why don't we expand the pie that we're servicing? Why not be more than just junk removal, but why not be trucks and labor that can remove people's junk as well as move them from point A to point B. I would say junk removal tends to have a little bit of a higher margin, but it's has more alternatives. Moving is a higher in-demand business because you don't have as many of alternatives. When you're moving, you're either gonna do it yourself or you're gonna hire somebody. If you have junk, you might let it sit in your garage. You might try to slowly put it out on the curb. You might try to haul it away yourself. But if you value getting rid of stuff quickly, just not lifting a finger, having it all done for you, that's where we come in as a full service solution.
So junk removal, it's kind of a one-time transactional thing. How do you keep people like coming back?
Yeah, so we try to stay engaged with our clients. We want to create brand loyalists, and so they might need us cleaning out their garage today, but tomorrow they might have a piece of furniture that they're upgrading or a backyard patio that they're going to be transitioning or transferring, or they might be moving and then they need us for moving. So we try to make sure that we're there when they need us. We've had clients call us, every quarter to do a different type of cleaning, spring cleaning, fall cleaning, getting ready for school, back to school. We also have people call us once a year as they need us for moving or junk removal.
What was your role for the first year and how did you transition?
Well, the first year of business, we were doing all the work ourselves. We were hauling the junk, driving the trucks, answering the phones. One of our mentors recommended we read a book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber. It's a light bulb moment for us where we could learn how to work on the business, not just in the business. So we started creating systems and processes for the business to grow. We didn't have programs like this online that we could, learn from. So we kind of had to figure it out on our own. We eventually started hiring people to drive the truck, to answer the phones, to greet the clients, and that allowed us to have a second truck, eventually a second location. I think one of the scariest things for a founder entrepreneur is sort of letting go of the reins a little bit. You got to do that. You got to give up control to get control. If you're going to build a business that has any level of scale, you can't do every single thing in the business every day. You do truly have to, and it's cliche to say, learn how to work on the business, not just in it.
Sweet. So they have now finished up at this junk site. You guys offer moving services as well. So let's go give one of those job sites a look.
Let's do it. So this is a full house move. It includes packing, loading, transport, and unpacking.
Well, take us way, way back. What were your total startup costs down to the dollar?
Sort of went in two phases. The first was zero because we borrowed Omar's mom's cargo van and we were living at home. So we were kind of in business from day one with just some computer printout flyers. Let's call it $20 to get started day one. But once we bought our first truck, we had to put a down payment on it as well as some marketing materials and supplies. So total startup cost was probably more in the $10,000 to $20,000 range.
If you had to start again today with no customers, no budget, would you start with moving or junk?
Well, we started with junk originally, and I think I would do the same thing again. Lower cost of entry, lower cost of labor, and a lot less can go wrong when you're doing the work. And in some cases, we don't really leverage this in our business, but I have seen junk haulers do it. There is some value in the items that you're hauling away that you can monetize on the back end as well.
What's your 3-word rule for marketing? How can someone watching put that into practice?
Always be branding. You are the brand of your business. If you're not gonna promote yourself, especially in the early days, who will? Eventually you'll get your early customers, early employees to help friends and family help evangelize, but you gotta be so proud of what you're doing that you're willing to shout it from a mountaintop. When we walk into the client's home, we are always branding. And that first impression is backed up by second, third, and fourth impressions because people will reinforce that first impression 1,000 times.
What did year-over-year revenue look like for this business?
Well, we started in 2005. We did about $500,000 in that year. We're gonna do roughly $300 million this year, which equates to about a 30% year-over-year growth rate, 40% every 5 years.
Obviously, those are incredible numbers there. 2 timelines that stick out to me is the 2008 and 2020 with COVID. How did that impact your numbers?
Definitely the economic downturn of 2008, housing market crisis, and the COVID era of 2020 put a bit of a hamper in our business growth. Some wind came to our front. And I think what it did was it allowed us to become better entrepreneurs, more gritty, more resilient, and more resourceful to be able to get through those challenging times. Because in easy times, anybody can win. So I would say we ran a little bit flat during those years, kind of felt like we were pushing the sled through the sand. But once the wind turned, we'd gotten so much better during those times that we were able to ride the wave upwards in the turnaround as well.
So they're about to wrap up in here and they're gonna start moving stuff outside. Can we go see what that process looks like?
Absolutely, let's see how we pack the truck.
Let's do it. Want to see how you can build your own junk removal or moving business? Nick's put together a free masterclass for UpFlip viewers. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get started. When you're growing fast, how did you keep the customer experience consistent?
Training. If you're not training, you're not gaining. We say you coach in the locker room and on the field. So we created scripts and customer service training for all of our frontline team members to understand what our clients expect when they call us, what are things that they might complain about, and what can we do 100% of the time to limit those complaints. So a great example would be, we're not gonna be on time every time, but as long as we call every single job before the expected arrival window to let them know when we're anticipating arrival, it at least alleviates the likelihood or the blood pressure that customer might be feeling about whether we're gonna even show up or not. So that training is consistent. It's not a one-time event. It has to happen ongoing to make sure that customer service is not common sense. It has to be taught.
What's your secret for making a new business seem bigger than they are?
Well, really, it's all about the trucks. When we had one truck, we used to park this in visible locations all throughout the city, and people would say, what do you got, 10, 20 trucks? I see them everywhere. So you always want to stand out even when you're smaller. We went and we bought a 1-800 number, put it on the side of our truck, back of our truck to make ourselves look bigger, even though it was still routed to our cell phone. Anytime somebody called to complain about driving, I'd be the one answering the phone saying, we'll fire those guys. And you hear the mantra, fake it till you make it. It's not quite that extent, but it is. You want to dress for the job you want. So you want to build your brand for the brand you want to become. And for us, it was becoming an iconic brand where everybody could recognize the trucks, know the name. And to be able to do that, we had to really put ourselves out there in the community.
Do you think branding made a difference in your early revenue?
Absolutely. Always branding is one of our core values. You want to stand out in a crowded landscape, but you got to have some stake to back it up. You got to have a quality service, a quality product, a quality experience is going to have people talking enough to have them coming back and telling their friends and neighbors about you.
Anyone can move boxes, but what separated Nick and Omar from the pack was efficiency. They managed to turn a single truck into a $300 million a year franchise because they made the right calls at the right time. And now every business is trying to figure out how AI can help them do the same thing. But the truth is, there are too many options and your business can't afford to wait. That's why over 43,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 AI cloud ERP that brings your financials, inventory, HR, and CRM into one unified system. One single source of truth that powers smarter, faster decisions. All of that connected data, it's what makes NetSuite's AI smarter. It doesn't just guess, it knows. It automates tedious tasks, gives real-time insights, and helps you make confident, AI-powered decisions that drive efficiency and reduce costs. If I were trying to scale my business, NetSuite would be the key to unlocking growth like never before. Whether your company earns millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you stay ahead of the pack. You can get their business guide, Demystifying AI, for free at netsuite.com/upflip. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/upflip, netsuite.com/upflip.
So this is our world headquarters. This is where our franchise support staff works, sales, support, coaching, finance, all the back office functions for all of our franchises around the country.
How many employees are in this building?
Roughly from 50 to 80 on our corporate team. We also used to have 300 call center agents working out of this building, but we went full remote during COVID.
Well, I see a lot of timelines and dates in here. What exactly is this room?
This is actually our huddle room. It kind of also doubles as a waiting room for guests, but this is where we have all the milestones and major moments that happened in the 20-year College Hunks history. This is the original cargo van. Omar wanted to keep the whole van. He said, hey, would Babe Ruth get rid of the first bat he ever hit a home run with? And we compromised and settled on keeping the cargo van door and the driver's seat. So it's on display to remind us about the humble beginnings and how we started.
When it comes to marketing, what do you look for, like cost per lead and an ROI?
Well, we try to get our spend to be anywhere from 10 to 15% of our revenue on advertising and marketing. And so cost per lead is generally going to want to be in the $50 to $100 range. Ideally, the conversion is going to be in the $100 to $150 range. In the early days, we were probably spending upwards of 30% back into marketing because you're still building the brand, you're still building the awareness, and you're still trying to generate leads that you can convert into real paying dollars. And so in the early days, there's definitely an overspend on marketing to where there's a little bit more awareness. You can rely on the repeat and referral business, which we want to see at the 30-40% range as well.
After spending millions on Google Ads, what's the biggest lesson you learned?
Fine-tuning and refining your keywords, your search, the algorithms, they keep changing. It's a never-ending process. It's never a set it, forget it. You've got to bring in great, smart people into the organization, smarter than me, and also work with vendors and partners that also have an edge on getting conversions of those leads.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend first-time founders in this business to get started with Google Ads for those first 20, 30 clients? Or?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that first-time business owners, and especially in this business, get involved. It's highly competitive, so there's a lot of congestion in there, but that's where people are searching for this business. So if they can't do it themselves, getting with a reputable provider that can deliver those solutions and those results is important. That's how our franchises are able to benefit in our system because we've got all that stuff somewhat dialed in.
Welcome to our Fan Blitz. Nick, you ready for this?
Ready.
Has anyone ever expected a college hunk and been disappointed?
We've actually had a few, I can count on two hands, complaints in 20 years of people complaining. Usually they recognize that the name is kind of playful, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's quirky. And now we made Hunks an acronym: honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. So you won't be disappointed with that.
What's the weirdest thing someone's asked you to move or haul?
Believe it or not, this was right when I was getting off the trucks. We had a gentleman that asked us to haul away a basement full, floor to ceiling, of pornography videos. He was getting engaged and I guess fiance didn't know he had this collection. This was pre-internet. Haul that away. It's pretty weird.
I like it. If you're asked to write the foreword of any book, which would it be?
I would write the foreword for the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, because that was the first light bulb moment book that we read. When we read it, it was almost like it was written about us. He actually wrote the foreword for our book, Effortless Entrepreneur, so I'd love to return the favor for him.
I love that. If you could help any celebrity or famous person move, who would it be and why?
I think the celebrity I would help move, because she seems to need a lot of help these days, is Britney Spears. And I had a big crush on her in high school, so it would be great to come full circle.
I love that. Besides the name, what's one crazy business decision you made that worked?
Besides the name, crazy business decision we made that worked was going on the first episode of the first season of Shark Tank. We didn't know the sharks were going to become TV celebrities. We didn't even know that the pilot episode was going to air as the first episode. And it got us great exposure, really, I would say, put our name on the map nationally as a national brand.
If you weren't in the moving and junk business, what niche do you think you'd be in?
I would be in the real estate business. You see out here, we got beautiful homes. It's kind of actually been a small hobby of mine to fix up nice homes and luxury homes and live in them and then move on to the next one. So I think that would be a full-time venture.
What movie or song best encapsulates the culture at College Hunks and why?
Well, we hired him for our 20-year anniversary, Ludacris. Move, get out the way.
I love that. And that is a wrap on our Fan Blitz. Where are we at, and how's your personality come out on this?
Yeah, so this is my office. It's a little bit of a mad scientist lab. This is where I come and just try to get some deep work, take some meetings, and have some of the inspirations around me, like all the fun stuff.
What's been your biggest challenge growing this, and how did you overcome it?
Biggest challenge growing this, quite frankly, was trying to franchise during the economic downturn, the housing crisis of 2008, 2009. If you were to pick a time in history to start a home service concept and then try to franchise it, you probably wouldn't pick the time when the housing market is crashing. That being said, I think it made us resilient, it made us gritty, made us resourceful, and made us really become better entrepreneurs, better leaders, prepared us for any adversity that we faced thereafter. And so, I think starting a business when things are good and easy is actually a little bit of a fool's errand, because you get a little bit too complacent and confident and you think you can't make any mistakes or fail.
On the table here, we got the Effortless Entrepreneur. Take a look at it here. Why did you and Omar write this book? Did it grow the business? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we were actually at a business conference shortly after starting our company, and one of the speakers said, anybody who's ever written a book always says they wish they had done it 10 years earlier, so go write a book. And I guess we took it to heart. We were like, I guess we got to write a book. What should we write it about? So we wrote it from the perspective of what is it that we wish we knew in high school, college, and shortly after starting the business that we had learned 5 years into it, from the books we had read, from the speakers we had heard, from the real world experience that we had. So we use it as a branding tool. I reread it recently. I would say 90% of it is still very relevant and timeless. 10%, is probably from the time that I wrote it. I was a young bachelor, kind of wrote it with a little bit of an edge. Think I'd be the next Tim Ferriss. Didn't quite work out that way, but nevertheless, I think it does hold true to the key principles, which, image is everything. Take action. Ideas are just ideas unless you take action on them. Understanding the importance of people and systems, learning skills like sales, that it's not a four-letter word to be a salesman, that you're actually helping somebody with the solutions that you have. So those are some of the tools and techniques that we share in the book.
Someone's watching this right now and they're saying, hey, Nick, I see 5 moving companies in my small town. Is there still opportunity?
There's absolutely opportunity. There was hundreds of moving companies when we started. We didn't reinvent the moving business. What we invented was something that has a creative image on the exterior, a focus and intentional experience on the team member and the client interior. And that's been the key to our secret sauce. So I would tell anybody, any business that has competition is ripe with opportunity because you can come in and do it better, slightly different, and gain that competitive edge.
Should entrepreneurs have a personal brand? Why or why not?
Absolutely. It starts from the leader, the entrepreneur, the founder. You've got to brand yourself because people do business with people. Mm-hmm. More recently, we actually got recognized by the mayor of Tampa for Hunks vs. Hurricanes documentary. She presented us with a key to the city for our company's role in the hurricane cleanup. And, again, I was able to brand myself as the leader in the organization as part of that. So I do think whether it's LinkedIn, TikTok, or otherwise, even if you don't become a quote-unquote influencer, you have to position yourself as an authority figure in that industry that you're a part of.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of becoming an authority figure, let's look at this Red Bull picture. Talk to us a little bit more about this. I see who's flying off.
This is me suspended 30 feet in midair over Tampa Bay, getting launched off of a man-made flying College Hunks flying junk truck. We participated in Red Bull Fluke Tag. And sometimes I preach stretching your comfort zone as an entrepreneur, stretching your comfort zone as a leader. So this was a way for me to walk that walk and exhibit that to everybody in our organization and over 250,000 people in Tampa Bay that watched it live.
Yeah. Question for the audience today. If your friends called your business idea embarrassing or beneath you, would you still do it if it could make you rich? Let us know down in the comments below. If you had to start over from scratch today, knowing what you know now, how quickly could you get to a profitable business again that generates great lifestyle?
Relatively overnight. That's kind of what we did at College Hunks, because with this business model, you can start low cost, low overhead. There's not a lot of fixed costs with the exception of the truck or warehouse, which at the time when we started, we didn't have. So just getting into business and generating that cash flow from day one is a reality. Technically, you could start with zero like we did with a borrowed cargo van and staying at your parents' house and eventually get your own space.
What's the biggest skill that you had to learn that they did not teach you in business school?
The biggest skill I had to learn was grit and resilience. They really don't teach you how to handle adversity in business school, but being able to handle the economic downturn like we did in 2008, 2009, being able to handle COVID like we did 5 years ago, those sorts of things are kind of unprecedented, and you got to have that grit and resilience muscle to be able to persevere as an entrepreneur. And so I think having the mantra and mindset that it's going to be tough and you're going to persevere no matter what is very critical. Persistence is really a key ingredient with any endeavor in entrepreneurship.
For you, what's one common piece of entrepreneurial advice that you completely disagree with?
I would call it nuance, but I don't think it's sound advice to say chase your passion. If you had told me to chase my passion when I was in high school or college, I would have tried to start something that was related to basketball. And so I don't think I was passionate at all about moving or junk removal, but what I realized is I was purposeful about making a difference, making an impact, doing something creative. So I think you could reframe that concept of chasing your passion to chasing something that moves you personally, that you're purposeful about, and that you feel good about making an impact doing. And it can absolutely be anything in that, for that matter. It broadens the options so you don't feel stuck trying to chase something that you like doing, but ultimately you may get bored of.
Well, this location is sick in your guys' HQ. Where exactly are we at?
We call it the library, the room that junk built. Some of the stuff actually came off of a junk job in the early days. A lot of books that have been handed to us or have been impactful and influential to us, as well as a lot of the memorabilia from the early days and some of the news clippings to just kind of commemorate where we started.
How do you know if someone is a fit for College Hunks, if it's a franchisee or even a team member?
Well, we look for 4 things: skill fit, financial objectives, fun factor, and does their family support them in this endeavor? So whether it's a franchise owner or a team member, we want to make sure that they have the skills as well as the value fit for what we do. Do they align with our core values culturally? They believe in our company purpose and our building leaders and about making a difference. And if they do they have the skill that can be applied or the will to learn that skill that can be applied at whatever level they're coming in at, franchise owner or otherwise?
How important was a simple business model for your success?
I think it was very important. I think as entrepreneurs, we all have a tendency to chase shiny objects and chase new ideas. I say I've got a little bit of ADD, stands for all damn day. I can't turn it off. And it's simple, but it's not easy. If it were easy, everybody would do it. But at the same time, simplicity wins because it keeps things digestible and actionable and executable on a daily basis.
Tons of businesses have copied your branded look that is so iconic now. Has your market share changed at all with that?
No, I would say imitation is the highest form of flattery. At the end of the day, execution is a differentiator. People might look like us, sound like us, try to be us, but there's only one College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving as a franchise system that we're able to make that happen. So obviously we protect the trademark, protect the brand marks in the interest of things that we've invested in, but we haven't seen a noticeable impact as a result.
How'd you get on shows like Shark Tank, Millionaire Matchmaker, House Hunters? Did those move the needle for you at all?
Yeah, we answered an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine that said looking for business owners to pitch a business for a TV show, and it ended up being the pilot episode, which ended up being the first episode of Shark Tank. So that was our first kind of, I would say, lucky break into Hollywood, so to speak, but saw the power of mainstream media. We are a consumer brand. We also sell franchises. So being able to get that national exposure, I think, was priceless. That segued into the Millionaire Matchmaker dating show, where my business partner picked up his date on a College Hunks truck to go clean out his garage. I think it would have been a meme if those existed back then. And then that segued into shows like House Hunters. More recently, we did Undercover Boss. And so anytime we've been able to leverage mainstream media like that, I think it elevates the halo effect of the brand. Franchise owners believe in it, team members get excited about it, and yes, customers become more aware of it, even if they're not making a phone call immediately from seeing the show. When they're doing a Google search or they're thinking about move or junk haul, they're gonna remember having seen that episode. So no direct impact on revenue or leads. We do see a spike in web visits from time to time after the show reruns and things like that, but it's really more the intangible benefit that we get from having been exposed on those national platforms.
I want to ask about Shark Tank in particular. Did you get a deal out of that? If not, are you kind of happy you didn't get a deal of what you know of Shark Tank? I mean, just curious there.
So funny enough, we were pitching a sister company. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes.
Okay.
That was the Sharks' reaction as well. I think the Hunks are better suited for the packing. The Sharks recognized that as well. And they made an offer. Robert Herjavec made an offer, but he wanted 50 or 10% rather of College Hunks, which would have been worth 100 times what it was back then based on the valuation he was giving us. So we ended up turning it down.
We're gonna pass on the offer.
Whoa.
Again, it was episode 1, so we didn't know these guys were going to turn into TV celebrities or that they would have this brand effect on some of the investments that they made. So hindsight's always 20/20. But I think we were glad that we stood to our, stood to our guns and didn't accept the deal.
What's the one metric you check every day and why?
Leads, because leads turn into conversions, which turn into sales, which turn into money, which turns into profit. So we got to know what's coming in the top of the funnel that ultimately we can convert further down on all the different layers of the business.
If you ever wanted to build a business with real margins that scales fast and you can eventually step away from, the moving and junk removal blueprint was built for you. In this step-by-step course taught by Nick, who built a $300 million brand, you'll learn how to price your services, attract your first customers, and build a culture that people love, and deliver a 5-star service that generates repeat revenue without years of trial and error. If you're ready to learn from the best and shortcut your success into a $100 billion recession-proof industry, scan this QR code or click the link down in the description below. They say 50% of business partnerships fail. How have you and Omar been successful?
For us, really, as a business partnership who started out as a friendship, vision and values have been in alignment and communication has been open, and we don't hold resentment longer than 24 hours. I think those are the biggest keys. We'll argue or disagree over something pretty regularly, in fact, but we get right back to the mission and the vision at hand very quickly. So there's no resentments. We communicate openly. We have a long-term vision and shared values, and I think that openness and communication and trust, quite frankly, has allowed us to thrive as a business partnership.
A lot of people talk about culture, they talk about core values live and put it on a wall, but how do you make sure they actually drive results for you guys?
Well, we have a mantra. We say it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls. And meaning the core values is who we hire, who we reward and recognize, who we let go, who we want to have on this journey with us on the bus to get to the destination we're trying to get to. So it's the behaviors that we truly value in our team members that get recognized is what represents our core values. We think of it as a guardrails that keep us from driving off the road as we're on this journey.
I love that. How did you develop these core values, and is it something you did early on? Would you advise people to do it early on?
Yeah, I mean, core values are foundational pillars of any business. We have 4 of them: building leaders, always branding, listen, fulfill, delight, and fun, safe, winning team. Those are values that I was passionate about as a founder, ones that I think were reflective in our best team members early on, and ones that I felt, if people believed in and want to be a part of this organization, they will identify with those core values as well, personally and ultimately professionally. Those 4 are like, we think of them as the 4 wheels on a truck. They keep us moving in unison together, they keep us running smoothly, and they keep us executing.
How important is environment to entrepreneurial success?
Oh, the environment you're part of is very important. Your peer group, the community you live in. I would say it's extremely valuable because you do become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Talk to us about moving from DC to Tampa. Was that intentional from like a business perspective?
When we started franchising, we knew we needed a headquarters where the community was supportive of small businesses and entrepreneurship, where the call center was going to be able to be developed. And at the time, the DC area, which is high cost of living, cost of office space, we did some research, found Tampa to be great from the standpoint it's got big city amenities, small town comforts, and a very supportive business community. So it's been incredible. I've been able to join the Young Presidents Organization, Florida chapter, the Entrepreneurs Organization, as well as several other peer groups where I'm able to learn and grow from other like-minded entrepreneurs.
The goal of entrepreneurship is obviously to pay yourself. For you, I mean, when did you start paying yourself? What was that first salary for you?
I think I made the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs do is we didn't pay ourselves for a long time because you're pumping everything back into the business. And then one of my mentors said, you got to pay yourself first, because if you don't, you're going to always fall to the bottom of the list. And so I took that to heart. We started paying ourselves. This was roughly about 6 months into the business. We had been generating some cash flow and putting it back into the company, but realized that if we weren't going to pay ourselves first, then what was the purpose of what we were doing?
Mm-hmm. For first-time founders, I mean, what's like a percentage that they should pay themselves of revenue? How do you break that down?
For first-time founders, I would say that 10% is a good benchmark to start with of revenue to be able to pay yourself a salary or a draw, really, because you're the chef, cook, and bottle washer of the business from day one, and we were doing all the work ourselves. So rather than paying an employee to do it, we had to pay ourselves.
What books changed your business the most and why?
Well, certainly The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. We read that early on in our business. It felt like it was written about us. So we applied everything we learned from that. And then more recently, The Purple Cow by Seth Godin, How to Stand Out in a Crowded Industry, as well as Traction by Gino Wickman and Good to Great by Jim Collins. That would complete really the final 4 of my favorite books.
If you could summarize one principle you learned from The E-Myth Revisited, what is it?
Well, people don't fail, systems fail. You got to get great people to help develop and evolve those systems. So people is important, but ultimately, if the business is to grow, it's got to have strong, sound systems that can replicate upon itself.
I mean, you're doing $300 million in revenue. I'm sure you could have sold that for a very hefty stake, retired, moved to Thailand, do whatever. Right. What keeps you going?
For me, it's something I've become more passionate and purposeful about is potential maximization. What I mean by that is, how do I become my very best self as a leader, as a husband, a father, as an entrepreneur? How do we maximize the true potential of this platform, which I think just is scratching the surface of what it can do in terms of making an impact in the communities that we serve. So I'm not ready to let my foot off the gas yet.
Have you been offered an evaluation by private equity or anything?
Yeah. We've had private equity offers, as well as strategic companies and franchise platforms make an interesting or express interest in our business, and we're just not ready for that.
Awesome. I see the sign behind us. We are celebrating 1 million meals package. Talk to us about the social initiative.
We actually have a partnership with U.S. Hunger. We donate 2 meals for every completed job, and more recently, we surpassed 5 million meals since we started the program. We also provide free moves for survivors of domestic violence, which we had heard about, on the rise during COVID. So I think it's really important as a purpose-driven organization to have a social partnership where you are making a difference in the community. And we say, with no margin, there's no mission. So we got to be a successful business, but in order to have a mission, in order to make a difference, you got to find a partnership that people are passionate about in the organization. So childhood hunger and hunger in particular in this country, hunger and security, those are things that team members, franchise owners, clients alike were all passionate and rally behind. So we wanted to mirror some of the other great iconic brands that had done a one-for-one giving partnership. Omar challenged us, said, why don't we do 2-for-1? And that's how we made that partnership happen.
When did you all introduce this and talk about that?
We launched it, it had to be about 5 years ago that we launched it, right before COVID actually, so a little more than 5 years ago. And it's been a great partnership. They're a great organization. They do packaging events as well that we've been a part of and that we've been able to leverage our trucks and our labor to assist with. So it's something we're going to continue to do, and we'll see if we can make it to 10 million.
Sesame Street, Wall Street, it's a term you have. What's that balance between Sesame Street and Wall Street?
Yeah, so this was actually something my business partner came up with. We gotta have the right balance of Sesame Street and Wall Street. What I mean by that is, if you're all about the money, there's no loyalty, there's no passion, there's no purpose. People aren't gonna care, they're gonna be stabbing each other in the back. That's the Wall Street side. If it's all Sesame Street, it's all kumbaya, there's no accountability. So you gotta have the performance-based toughness with the warm, welcoming values. And so the way we really truly define that is we say we're cold on the numbers, we're warm on people. You gotta be compassionate and care about the people in your organization, but you gotta still have to have performance-based toughness and expectations. And if you can have that, you create a winning team on the field and in the locker room, and that's the way you create a winning organization.
Can you give us a quick story about how you had to be cold on numbers, but also have that warmth towards people as well? Is there a story that comes to mind?
I mean, stories that certainly come to mind is if we're falling short of our goals or a team member is falling short of his expectations, you got to sit them down and have a real heart-to-heart. You know, maybe this isn't the right fit for them. Maybe we got to get them more training. Maybe we got to find them another organization to be a part of. But that's out of compassion, not out of coldness. And so holding people accountable is part of leadership. Building leaders is one of our core values. And so you don't want people to be off-put or offended by holding them accountable, which is things that we've had to do regularly in our organization to make that part of our culture.
For you, I mean, what's more fun, the scrappy energy like the early days or throwing concerts with Ludacris?
College Hunks 20-year anniversary party. Where are my shares in College Hunks? We'll talk about me owning my first College Hunk somewhere.
You know, what's funny is we listened to Ludacris when we first got started. He was sort of the soundtrack of our business back in 2005. So the fact that we were able to actually afford and be able to hire him to come in and perform a private concert for our franchise owners as part of our 20th anniversary doesn't get more iconic or more, I guess, sort of dream-like achieving than that. But those early days, that energy, the passion and enthusiasm of starting up and being scrappy, I don't think there's anything that can replace that feeling because the dream existed in our minds, and then being able to achieve that dream was really the most fulfilling process about part of that process.
When you look back, I mean, you have to be so proud of what you've done. Did you ever think it would get to this size?
You know, people ask me, do I think we would get to this size? And I would say yes and no. Like, we always had these ambitious aspirations of trying to build a national iconic brand. And to now think that we've done that, it's sort of a pinch me moment to say, like, wow, I didn't really think it was going to happen, but here we are. And in many ways, we sometimes, and we use this as a motivator, feel like we're just getting started.
There's an aspiring entrepreneur watching right now. They're stuck in a 9-to-5. They have their doubts. They have their uncertainties on entrepreneurship. What would you tell them?
I would tell them if we were able to do it starting with a beat up cargo van and no money, anybody can do it. It takes a lot of grit, a lot of hustle, a lot of patience for the results, and a lot of urgency of effort, but take the leap.
Love this episode with Nick? Then you can't miss how two broke college students turn $2,500 into millions with one simple business idea that you wish you would have thought of. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.